7. Okay. Good evening, Erev Tov. You know, they say a story that somebody once passed away and there was a funeral. And what do you do by a funeral? One of the things by a funeral is you have a eulogy. What do people say at a eulogy? In parentheses, it's famous, the joke, that when they ask someone, what do you want to hear on your eulogy? He said, I would like to hear the Rabbi getting up there and saying, I think something is moving in the casket. This is just in parentheses. But what happened is, the Rabbi got up there and he said, oh, let's call him Yankel. Yankel, he was an amazing community member. And this elderly man gets up there and he says, what? Community member Yankel had nothing to do with the community, never showed up for Minyan, never showed up for any support, didn't participate in any programs. What are you saying? Yankel, amazing community member. Okay, sorry. Yankel, I meant, was a very, very, very nice family man. This elderly man says, family man? His wife couldn't wait to get rid of him. His children don't even talk to him. What kind of family man are you talking about, Yankel? So the Rabbi starts saying, maybe I got to talk more about the simple things of life. You know, he was a mensch. And the guy said it was never a mensch. Don't even say it. He's known to be a non-mensch. Make a long story short. So the Rabbi thinks, what can I say about him? And finally says, in regard to his brother, he was a real tzaddik. Why am I saying this story? You obviously know why. Because the beginning of this Parsha. This Parsha begins with a very seemingly strange Rashi, which is a very difficult Rashi to understand, especially if you read it superficially, just by his, by the simple reading of the verse. Rashi, as we spoke many times, Rashi's job is to explain words of Torah which needs to be explained. And mainly, Rashi obviously, like every commentator of the Torah, comes with the notion that there is no extra word in the Torah. There is no missing word in the Torah. And the Torah is trying to be as precise as possible. And if there is something that it can write in 2 words, and at the same time, it's usually being written in 4 words, the Torah is going to use the 2-word version, not the 4-word version. From every letter of the Torah, from every word of the Torah, we learn that so many important concepts, both in the world of halacha, in the world of Jewish law, in Jewish culture, tradition. Torah is taken as a very, very fundamental, book, in a way that every letter and every word means a world. So if you read the first verse of the Torah, it begins as follows. Eile toldot Noach, which is translated, these are the offspring of Noach. Noach ish tzaddik. Noach was a righteous man. Tamim aya, a perfect person was he, bedoratav, in his generation. Et Elokim is alech Noach. Noach walked with God. This is what the first verse talks about and describes Noach. What extra word would you consider? I mean, if you don't read Hebrew, it's going to be difficult for you to appreciate.
These are the offspring of Noah. Why does it start off?
So Rashi was bothered by that too. And Rashi says that really the story is about the offsprings of Noach. But meantime, while he's mentioning his name, therefore the Torah goes on and elaborates about his righteousness, even though that other part was seemingly unnecessary. But this is, okay, one explanation of Rashi. Rashi actually quotes two interesting Talmudic and Midrashic sources in regard to this issue. One is that he brings the famous verse in Proverbs. The verse says, Shlomo HaMelech says, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. When you remember a righteous person, you should remember him for blessing. If you notice, this is actually a common inscription for somebody who died. Sometimes you might find the acronym of Zayin Tzadik Lamed, which means in Hebrew, Zecher Tzadik, the remembrance of a Tzadik. Livracha is for a blessing, meaning we are always looking to continue remembering the name of a Tzadik and the concept of a Tzadik. So since Noach was mentioned, so he also mentions righteousness. The Tzaddik, he was complete, he was walking with God. Rashi also brings another thing, that if you want to know that Noach was a Tzaddik, what does a Tzaddik mean? Follow the Parsha, you're going to see the good deeds of a Tzaddik. Now I'm talking about a different word. The word what really is seemingly, in English you would use the word perhaps superfluous, extra, unnecessary, is the word bedoratav, in his generation. Meaning, we are talking about Noach's life, and if he was a tzaddik, so when you talk about someone being a tzaddik, so obviously you're talking about him being a tzaddik in the life that he is. Not that you say he's tzaddik in someone else's life. He's tzaddik tamim in the life that he's alive. There is where he's a tzaddik. So what is the emphasis of the word bedoratav in his generation? That is a word which is seemingly unnecessary. Therefore, Rashi, as being a great Rabbi and teacher, says, well, there is actually an important message here. And Rashi brings two opinions, how to translate, how to interpret the word bedoratav. And Rashi brings this opinion, which is actually quoted in the Talmud. In the Talmud, it is actually mentioned in the name of two brother-in-laws, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, which were two brother-in-laws. Rabbi Yochanan gave his sister to Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish was more a Talmudic sage, which was called today a Baal Tshuva. He was a bandit, a robber, and eventually he got back to good way of life, and he married Rabbi Yochanan's sister, and they became brother-in-law. Rabbi Yochanan is like the Rebbe. Okay? So what are these two opinions? Each one translates the word bedoratav differently. One says, obviously the literal translation of bedorotav means in his generation. So one of them says, you know what is in his generation means? This is really a part of the praise that the Torah wants to attribute to Noah. And the Torah is telling us, you know how great Noah was? That even in his generation, which was a generation, as we see in the Parsha, a very corrupted generation, a generation with no inspiration, a generation with a lot of challenging difficulties, very, very hard to remain normal in a generation like that. Even in that generation, Noah was able to preserve his righteousness and to be the righteous person he was. Which this is a tremendous compliment to Noah. By saying, in other words, Noah, in his generation was a tzaddik, you can imagine Noah being in a generation surrounded with righteous people, surrounded with a spiritual environment. You can imagine what kind of heights Noah would reach in his righteousness, if in a time when everything around them is so corrupted and so challenging. Yet Noah is able to stand against the stream and say, I am who I am, and I'm going to keep the righteous way of God. Bedorotav, in his generation. So just imagine Noah being in the generation of sages, of spirituality, of the temple, who knows what. Would Noah reach? Would Noah become unbelievable? This is one rabbi who expounds on the word bedorotav in a praiseworthy manner, in a positive manner. Says Rashi, but then there is another rabbi, and he interprets the word bedorotav in a way which seemingly is a disgrace to Noah, a negative compliment of the sort of. But how do you say a negative compliment in
Backhanded.
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 Oh, backhand. Okay. What was it telling Noah? Noah, you were righteous. You know why? Because relatively to your generation, in the neighborhood that you grew up, the fact that you don't murder and you don't steal, you're already a tzaddik. But in a normal society, especially in a society among righteous people, you wouldn't be counted as furnished, because this is common ground. Everybody behaves like this is very normal. This is nothing unusual. You wouldn't get declared as tzaddik. No one would even recognize you as knowledgeable, because that's the common thing. You were lucky or not lucky. You were not lucky that you lived in a very crazy generation, but you're lucky because of that generation, the way you behave. Therefore, we can call you a tzaddik. This is the two opinions in Rashi. And there is a famous question that many commentaries are struggling with. If you can say something nice about somebody, why say something negative? If you have a rabbi who comes and he explains Noah in the way that he explained, by making Noah this shining star in his generation and introducing him as an even greater tzaddik in a greater generation, why would you want somebody else to sit years and thousands of years and learn your opinion in the Talmud and be qualified by Rashi that you should know, Noah, tzaddik. Avada, on the mean streets of who knows where, you are tzaddik. Let me see you being a tzaddik in Jerusalem. Let me see you being a tzaddik among tzaddikim. You would make it. You would never probably be a tzaddik. Why would you say something about Noah? It is not expected to be the tzaddik, which is not. But I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about Lashon Hara. It's called slander. The question becomes specifically difficult with just a few verses later, by seeing how careful the Torah is into talking about something or someone in a disrespectful manner. And this is in regard to the animals. Forget about people. Comes a few verses later, and Noah is being told to build an ark. And is even being told who should come into that ark, which will help them to be protected during the times of the flood. Says the verse that Hashem tells Noah that he should bring in samples of the different animals, domesticated animals, non-domesticated animals, birds, everything, creatures, everything has to be, crawling creatures, everybody has to be brought in to the table, to the ark. So look at chapter 7, verse 2, the way God speaks to Noah after telling him, come into the ark. And he says, because I saw you to be righteous from among all the generation. And he tells him, Mikola beima Torah tikach lecha shiva ish ve'ishto. Of every clean animal, what does clean mean? Kosher. Even the Torah was not given yet, but it's introducing it in regard to the future. But it's all going; those are going to be kosher in the future. As I said, that it was given to him already the divine inspiration of that which will eventually become kosher. So he says, take 7 of the kosher ones, and the 7 should be male and female. Okay. Then it says what? Umin abeima asher lo te'orai. And of the animal that is not clean, shnaim ish ve'ishto, you should take only 2 male with its mate, male and female. Now, what's the simple Hebrew word for non-clean? Tameh, which tameh makes up a word of 3 letters, tet, mem, aleph. Instead, the Torah is writing a long word, lamed aleph, lo, tehorah. 2 plus tiet plus hey plus resh plus hey. He is not clean. You can't tell the entire word minus the simple word tamei. You realize that the Torah is basically adding 8 extra letters. 8 extra letters just to pass by the word tameh, not to say the word tameh, which is, by the way, an observation of the Talmud in Tractate Psochim. In the beginning of Psochim, I believe it's page 3 or 2, the Gemara says that the the Gemara talks there about speech, what is considered proper speech and not proper speech. And the Talmud there says that you have to do something which you can say. And you can say it either in a way which would be presenting a positive connotation, or the same thing. It's going to present the same idea, but in a negative connotation. Even it takes you more words to spend in order to prescribe it, to pronounce it positively. You should follow the order of the extra wording. Make sure that no bad negative word emerges off your mouth. And the Talmud brings the proof. What's the proof? Parsha Noach. The Torah could have said Tmeya, Tameh, and instead it says Loi Tehoira, not clean. This proves you that this is the nature of the Torah. Which, by the way, in parentheses, but maybe not so in parentheses, just to get off for a moment, we know that the word Tameh is actually mentioned many times in the Torah. It does say the word contaminated, Tameh. It doesn't always use the word non-clean. So this is already a discussion on its own in which areas and in which content of speech are we careful with those way of expression. The Rebbe actually pointed out a few times in the Likkutei Sichos, the Rebbe discusses that, and he writes that when it comes to relate a story, an incident, an historical event, a situation, an experience, then obviously you should choose carefully the words, and instead of saying tamei, say nan tahor. But the Rebbe says if it comes to a ruling, a practical guidance, better say the way it is. Don't use the word nan tahor, and then someone's going to think, oh, okay, it's just not clean, but it's not, doesn't mean it's wrong. It's not good, but not good doesn't mean wrong. Instead, they got to tell them the way it is. It is wrong. It is grave. It is, it is, don't just say it is non-kosher. I once read a good story. It talked about this rabbi in Jerusalem, Salam, who came to serve rabbi in Jerusalem. He was there, I think, in the early 1900s, a little later, and he was sitting in his room, in his cabinet, and with other two rabbis, a big dinner, a court of rabbis, and there walked in a child holding a dish in a little plate and asking the rabbi to examine it to make sure if it's kosher or not. I guess something happened, maybe something fell in, milk fell into meat, or a questionable piece of meat. And this Rabbi Salant, who was already an elderly rabbi when he arrived in Jerusalem, tells the child, take it, go with it outside, and deposit it in the garbage, because this is not good. Okay? The child listened. One of the other rabbis who was sitting in that room, together with Rabbi Salant, looks at him and he says, what kind of long response was it? Take it to the outside, put it in the garbage, because this is not good. Child came to you with a question, good, no good. What do you say? No good, bye. Or bad. What's this instruction? Why are you involving yourself in so much instruction in regard to this meat, to this food? The Rabbi Salant said, look, I already learned the hard way with the delicacy of this Jerusalemite boy when it comes to something not kosher. And he relates that the following on some day, an earlier day, child came in over here also with a little tupperware, a little chisel, a little pot, with a questionable dish. I took a look, I asked them the scenario, and I told them, treif. The moment I said treif, he let it go out of his hands. What? Treif! Like, you don't want to hold something contaminating. And he messed up. My whole office became dirty with schmaltz, chicken, with eggs. I don't know what. I realized that this child, when he told the word treif, it is so critically, to it, so critical to him that he can't even be another second to hold it. Like, what? God forbid, he's holding that thing which is going to blow up in every second. He lets it go. And then I had to work hard to clean up my office again. I know already, with those kids, don't say the word treif. They come into the room, be very gentle and delicate. Instruct them. Take it outside, in the garden. Because it is not kosher. And slowly you build up to the fact that they shouldn't just drop it. And here's the story in regard to, in general, you have to actually tell the people the way it is when it comes to kosher and non-kosher or similar. That's why the Rebbe says we would find the word tamei in the Torah, but in the context of relating a story, God told Noah to do so and so. Why do you have to say the word tamei? Say the not clean animal. Not clean is a nicer language. It empowers you to speak more positive. I know today there's a whole movement of positive parenting, right? There's all classes and lectures and books that tell your kid that it's not good and it's bad. No, tell them you're not good. Everything is whatever. That's not good. Weiter. So what's the part? What's the story? This verse, taking it back to what we had learned before, makes this question even more difficult. In the same parsha, a few verses later, we learn and see how careful and delicate the Torah is in regard to what comes out of your mouth and in which way you should say it. Why then do you, Rashi, find it necessary to even quote a statement by a sage which is, forget about why did the sage say it? Itself is questionable. But what good does it do to us? If you can have such a beautiful explanation, which will respond to our original question. What's the question? Why does it say in each generation? And the beautiful answer is, oh, look at him. Despite the challenging generation, he was a tzaddik. How much more so he would have been a tzaddik later? Why waste time in and trying to find something, as they say in Yiddish, Moshe Kapoya, exactly the opposite. Something which will bring out something negative, seemingly, but more. The Rebbe has a beautiful insight on it. In the Likkutei Sichos, in Afabrengen, 1964. 1964 was a very special year. It came because of an unfortunate situation. The Rebbe's mother passed away 1964, the Shabbos between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It was the 6th of Tishrei. She didn't feel well. She was rushed to the hospital late Shabbos afternoon. The Rebbe went with her together to the hospital. The Rebbe was in the middle of a Farbrengen because he always Farbrengen on the Shabbos before Yom Kippur. Shabbos Shuva, it's called. But he was told by the doctor, came over and described the situation. So the Rebbe finished up quickly the Farbrengen, done Mincha, and then he went running to his mother's apartment. The ambulance already arrived, and he was driving with her together to the hospital. But what happened was that year, every Shabbos, in honor of his mother, the Rebbe Farbrengen every Shabbos. And not only Farbrengen every Shabbos, it wasn't always Farbrengen every Shabbos. It was the Shabbos Mevorchim, the Shabbos which blesses the new month. It wasn't like every single day. But not only Farbrengen every Shabbos, it was also all recorded, and he was editing all those Farbrengens. So we have it not only as like I explained you last week, taking a subject and analyzing, but it has literally almost word by word of that Farbrengen. And in that Farbrengen, the Rebbe discusses this very question. What's the importance of talking about Noach being, only in that generation? And he brings the question that we just said over here in regard to the animals, and he discusses it all. And he gives he says as follows. We have a Mishnah. The Mishnah tells us that a person is obligated to say that the world was created for me. When you read it literally, you may wonder, does the Torah want us to be arrogant about ourselves? The whole world is created just for me, Mordechai Farkash. But obviously, this is not a source of arrogance. This is a tremendous source of humility and responsibility. The world is for you, and you know that you have a big job which is expected from you, sharing your responsibility with what the world is. But it's a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Chayev Odom Loimar Bishveli Nivra Olam. For me was the world created. Everything in the world, everything is for him. Okay? You look at yourself and you say, me? Who am I? How can I accomplish something like this? can I make a real change in the world? I know myself. I get up in the morning, I look in the mirror, and I know there's nothing there, as they say in good English, nothing to write home about, right? How can I dare say, how can I even have a moment, a feel, to think and to decide that this is something for me to do? If I'm a tzaddik knows that he has the abilities, that he can do it. But if I'm not a tzaddik, then what am I? Who am I? The Rebbe says, for that reason, Rashi comes and tells you, let me tell you who Noach was. If we would have only have the first opinion that Noach was a tzaddik and a real tzaddik, then when you learn the story of Noach, you say, no, who am I to go to get to a place where Noach was? Noach, tzaddik. He was able to save the world, to start a new world. The world started because of him. But me, my garnish, how can I do it? The Rashi says, no, let me tell you Noah was. You think Noah was this great tzaddik? So let me tell you a secret. There's an opinion in Talmud that Noah was furnished a tzaddik. In regard to his generation, he was a tzaddik, but he wasn't really this very special man. He wasn't Rambam, he wasn't Rabbi Akiva, he wasn't no Rebbe. He was a simple person with living a life of challenges like all of us live, and he was able to stand by those challenges. Not as a tzaddik, but as being a
listening on the phone.
But as being a mensch, by being a person who is able to what's it called, to conduct himself properly, even in a place and time when it's difficult to be proper. I once heard a person talking about biographies of tzaddikim. You ask me personally, and you can ask my wife to confirm it if you need to, what do I like to read? If I would have koyach to read. No, I don't have koyach to read, but if I would have koyach to read, whatever this friend going to read a book, like in the good old days, what would I read? A biography. That's what I would like to read. I don't go into bed with a Talmudic tractate, the tractate of Talmud, for sure not with the newspaper. It doesn't interest me. Not even in the olden days politics. And not even, fiction, don't even try. It doesn't mean nothing to me. But a good biography I would appreciate. And what kind of biographies? My biographies I like to read is always about tzaddikim, righteous people, Hasidic dynasties, not necessarily only Chabad. Obviously, I'm a Chabadnik, and for me to know about what happened in Chabad is to know about what happened in my own family, right? I would like to know about my grandparents. I would like to know about Lubavitch, the Rebbe, whatever. If you give a book about the Chassid, I would like to know what happened to Chassidim in the times of the Alter Rebbe, and the Mitter Rebbe, and the Tzedek, and the Rebbe Marash, and the Rebbe Rashad, and to learn their life. But I can read and I appreciate all kinds of biography. Sometimes even Lubavitch asked me, how do you know all about this Rebbe from Gur and the Rebbe Pelt and Blin and these like, are you Chabadnik? I'm a Chabadnik, but this is the books I read. This is the books I still till today like to read and to find out inside stories, about their life, their and so on. I just said the other day I talked with someone. He's considering himself a expert on the history of the Holocaust. So he asked me, "What kind of books do you have in the house about the Holocaust?" Okay, so here in the library on my right, there is 2 or 3 shelves of Holocaust stories. One said a librarian here that she was very into this, to this type of reading, and she made an order, and she even got some type of grant or something to get books which is about the Holocaust, a lot of Holocaust books, Jewish Holocaust books, personal stories, community stories. The person asked me, what do you have at home? A book about the Holocaust. I have a book that this guy never read. You know what the book is called? The book is called, in Hebrew, The Rebbes Who Perished in the Holocaust. That's the book, I have it at home. Admorim Shenispu Bashoah. And it talks about all the different Hasidic rabbis of different community rabbis and Hasidic masters, what happened to them in that Holocaust time period, what happened to their life, what happened to the end of their life, what happened to their community. That's something which that's the interest. In other words, again, it's the content of the Holocaust, but biographically, not so much about the details. You know, Germany came in at this point, at that point, and what happened. I like that too, but more from the point of what happened to all the tzaddikim at that time. What happened to them? What happened to all the Hasidic yeshivas? What happened to the non-Hasidic yeshivas? What happened to the Jewish world in a biographic point of view during that time? So one of the things that someone once mentioned and discussed was the fact that when you read the biographies of tzaddikim, of righteous people, there's one issue that he has with those books. It seems like 90% of them, all the kids basically have the same story. By the age of 6, they already do the entire Talmud. By the age of 8, they were already seeing angels. By the age of Bar Mitzvah, they were, whoa. And then when you read it, he tells me, I look at it and say, okay, so it's nice to learn about those people, but I know it doesn't mean much to me. It doesn't mean much to me because I wasn't a genius in the age of 6, and I wasn't learned in the age of. I'll be able to open a book now. So what does it mean to me? That I'm very far from being a tzaddik. So I argue. I think still read them and learn from them, and even though that they were born on the mountain, as they say. You know the expression "born on the mountain." They say that one of the Hasidic rabbis was once one of the Hasidic rabbis was once he realized. No, somebody came and somehow admired him for his behavior. And he was a humble person, so he turns to them and he says that there was a mountain that was very difficult for people to climb up. Imagine, great mountain.
Everest.
Huh?
Everest.
Everest, okay. You can't climb up the Everest. It takes, it's snow, it's snowstorms, people getting lost, and people dying. It's a very, very challenging climb. And lo and behold, one day there is a person who put all his effort and invested strength, and he took training, and he did all the needy, necessary, and important preparations to climb up Mount Everest. And this is a builded person, a young, encouraged, and able to go to different programs to show that he can do it. He finally arrives at Mount Everest, and lo and behold, a 9-year-old flying around the top of the mountain like a free bird, playing, throwing snowballs, and he looks happier. You know what it took me to get here? What does the child say? What does it say? I never climbed that mountain. I was born. My father climbed, and I was actually born on top of it. For me, it's home. And the concept of being born on top of the mountain is sometimes, one end it's admirable. Well, look, you are from that dynasty of people that raised on top of the mountain and are beautiful and encouraging, inspiring. But on the other hand, they can also put a person in kind of, kind of respond to such a story and say, okay, so it's a story about great people, but nothing to do with me. And someone can read the Parsha of Noach and perhaps walk away from the Parsha with a similar kind of experience. Thinking, ooh, Noach, imagine that the word Bedorotav would not be written. It would only say tzaddik and complete and walking with God. Then continue reading. This guy, he actually saved the world because he was the only one who survived. And he built an ark and he had a family. And to his family, till today, we are all considering ourselves children of Noach. The fact that we are here today is to do to Noach. But it's obviously because he was a tzaddik. Am I able to have an impact of the world? Can I be a survivor who can change the course of history? Comes Rashi and says, oh, let me tell you, you think he was such a tzaddik? There is a rabbi of the Talmud who said that he was a very simple person. The reason he's called tzaddik is only bedorotav, it's only in comparison to his generation. But really, want to hear more? Take a look what he does after the flood ends. He liked a good drink too, by the way. Right? He was a farmer. He had a vineyard. He liked to say good l'chaim. You know, let's not make him this big macher. And that becomes the beauty. That becomes the lesson. Which, by the way,
It puts him in perspective.
it puts him in perspective that he can become an inspiration to others. So that's the word. The word, the Rebbe doesn't say it here, but the Rebbe does use it in other areas in Torah when a person is being pointed out in a negative behavior, and the Torah elaborates about it. The lesson that we take not to be like that person is the positive interest that the Torah has in discussing him. Remember once there was a discussion by the Rebbe about the famous guy who was with the Midianite woman. No, there was who was the story with the one who chopped the wood in the desert. It says in the Chumash, it says his mother's name was Shlomit, bat Divri, from the tribe of Dan. And Rashi tells us, Shlomit was Divri, was the daughter, no, that was the guy that, right? Yeah, the mother was Shlomit was Divri. And Rashi says, the whatever, she was a woman, the name was Shlomit, but she wasn't only a name. He actually was always going around town and greeting everybody and being the bill, saying shalom, shalom to everyone and getting into everybody's business. Being
that
the
was somebody else.
being the yanta.
That was somebody else.
Who was it?
That was somebody that was the son of the Egyptian and the Israelites.
Isn't that the same person?
No,
Who was that?
That's Zimri.
that was Zimri. No, that wasn't
No,
Zimri.
not
That was,
Zimri.
With the Egyptian.
that was with the no. Tzlofchad was the father of the.
No. But oh, here I have a chumash.
Yes.
All right, there we go.
No.
That's in Bob.
No.
The wood chop.
There's a lot of trouble for Jewish during the
Because just a second. It is in Parshas Shlach, I think. I think it's in Parsha Shlach. Yeah. Mekoshesh Eitzim is in Shlach. Here it doesn't say the name. Here it doesn't say the name, but Mekoshesh Eitzim. But in Parshas Pinchas, just a second. Ay.
The Kosher team is on page 816, but doesn't say that.
Oh, the name of the man, Zimri ben Solu and Cosby Basur,
That was a story of Pinchas.
yeah, I don't mean the story. Anyway, I don't remember the second. You're gonna have to forgive me. That's what happens in these days of life. The bottom line is there is a story of definitely Shlomit Basdivri, which is mentioned in the Chumash, and the Torah mentions the name, and the same idea is that sometimes you mention someone, even though in one end you will end up being so-called disrespectful to the person that you are mentioning, but at the same time, this itself becomes the positive message that the person shares that only I behaved wrongly, meaning everybody else behaved nicely. It brings out kind of the benefit and the good values of others. So this is number one, the interesting lesson from Noach, that everybody can be a Noach, meaning it's something available for everyone. By the fact that you can explain it in a way that he is not a real tzaddik, gives the opportunity for every person to be able to conduct himself in the way Noach did, which is to create a new world and to be a survivor, which will begin and initiate a new world. The Parsha of Noach and the Ark in Chassidus is being explained by the Baal Shem Tov in many very interesting ways and insights. The Baal Shem Tov makes the story of the Ark and the flood something which is very practical and available 2022. Yeah. The Baal Shem Tov talks about that the very word teva in Hebrew does not just mean an ark. Teva means a word. An idea of coming into the ark is an instruction that every person goes in and involves himself in the words of tefillah. Particularly, the Baal Shem Tov talks about tefillah. Davening. Davening is the so-called the protecting ark, which can take us through the floods of the Baal Shem Tov. Is not only that original flood. We can be floated in today's day, and perhaps if I don't want to say anything negative much, we are floated at some level. We are in a state of mabul in the world out there. Not a secret that what goes on in today's world, a lot of the Meshugas is kind of similar to the mabul. What does King Solomon, when he wants to talk about the special love that a Jew has to Hashem, a person has to God, he says, Mayim Rabbi. He says in Song of Songs, a multitude of water cannot wash away the love that we have to Hashem. Remember that verse? So Rashi and all commentators say, what is the multitude of water which can wash away the love? And they explain that you have an inner love, a strong relationship with Hashem. But then there is the rushing water. Rushing water, the Baal Shem Tov says, is specifically the preoccupation with the concerns of livelihood. You start praying and you start thinking, my job, my boss, my bills, recession, coming, not coming, the market's up, the market's down. You know, you can't get away from it. So you think that because of this water, The flood is going to come and wash you away. Does the Torah know? We can protect ourselves from the water. Not only we have a responsibility to create some type of shield of protection from those waters. And what is at the ark? You're getting into your little ark, your little box. What is our box? Our box is the words of Tefillah. Tefillah gives us the courage that not only when we daven, but really the idea of davening is even after you finish davening, you continue with that inspiration of tefillah that allows you to stand against the stormy waters representing the flood. The Mabul, Hasidus talks about, was 40 days. And we know that 40 is in Judaism a number which represents transitioning from one stage to another. It takes 40 days. How long did it take for Moses to pray on our behalf and to receive forgiveness? It was 40 days. Even the purification of a mikveh needs to have the halachic 40 se'ah, which is a liquid measure, in order to be able to transfer a person from one state to another state. A person who is in a state of tumah, of impurity, to become toher is a mikveh of 40 se'ah. A non-Jew can become a Jew by going to one of the parties to go to a mikveh, and the mikveh is 40 se'ah, and it changes them from one way to become another thing. Somehow the number 40 for the Jews to come out of Egypt and to be able to enter to Israel, they needed to go through 40 years. There is the 40 years for from conception till it's being considered legally a fetus is also 40 days. 40 is a very important number. And the fact that the flood was 40 days and 40 nights is brought down in Hasidus is not only somehow that there was a punishment of 40 days, because the flood, as we know, reflects a new world, a new reality. After the flood, the world is considered at some level even more purer, even purer than the world before the flood. Very interesting, something which is being discussed in Kabbalah and Hasidus, that the rainbow, which on the one end, the rainbow is the sign that I'm never going to bring a flood again, that the rainbow is only taking place by the sun's, by the rising of the sun reflecting to the clouds. When the sunlight meets the clouds and shines through the clouds, it creates the rainbow, right?
Water.
The what?
The water.
Now, this is a natural phenomenon. This is a natural phenomenon. Yet, that became the covenant. That became the covenant never to bring a flood again. How can a natural phenomenon be a covenant? And the answer, which is explained, is that before the flood, there was no way for a rainbow because the clouds were too thick to allow the penetration of the sun's light. And only after the Mabul, the clouds became much thinner and more delicate and less thick, which allowed the type of reflection. And basically the idea is that because the world is now in a state of purity accomplished by the Mabul, and it gives us the opportunity to connect a world with godliness which did not exist before the Mabul. Before the Mabul, there was no way, I mean, you had to behave properly, but there was no way that you were able to actually bring godliness with you in the world, to make it one with the world. And it's only after the flood when that mission can be accomplished. That's what the delicacy of the clouds represent. So mainly what we want to conclude from the story of this week's Parsha Noach is that not when we say Lashon Hara, and everybody gets nervous, you can't talk anything bad, God forbid, we have to be nice and nice and nice. True, we have to be nice. But sometimes when you hear someone saying something which doesn't seem to be as positive and as, flattering to someone, you have to think it's possible that we can take a positive lesson from it. And there is a tremendous positive lesson that we can take from Noach, with all his accomplishments, the ark, and many things that we still have to learn and discuss, is the idea that you can be a simple Noach and to be a person that in a generation of righteous people, you would not be considered righteous. It's only because you lived in such a small, a degraded generation, that's what made you to be a tzaddik. So even that person, which is many of the so-called the common people, average people, can be the Noachs of their generation with Hashem's help. That's the message. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Hi guys on the Zoom, are you with me?
Yes, thank you, Rabbi.
Oh, how come I don't see anyone? Let's see if I can see. Oh, I see Arnold. I see Karen. I see Sugarland. What is it called? Not Sugarland. With the Arizona, Illinois place.
Rudy.
What is it called?
Rudy and Judy in Illinois.
Who?
In Champaign.
Champagne.
Illinois.
Champagne, Illinois. Very nice. Very nice.
Rabbi,
Hi, good night to you.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
can I point out a small English mistake?
Oh,
Language.
Ken. 1 second. I have another student who wants to hear you. Come here. Ken likes to also be corrected in his English always. Yeah.
At the beginning of your talk, you referred to two brother-in-laws.
Brother-in-laws.
No, that's wrong. It's two brothers-in-law. Brothers-in-law, not
What did I say?
brother-in-laws.
It's the brothers that are in law, not the law.
Brothers-in-law.
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
Brothers in love.
Not in love, in law.
Baruch Hashem. Very good.
And
And what else?
a prism the sun doesn't reflect it. It's the light going through the prism coming out the other side that makes the rainbow.
Prison?
Prism.
Prism. P-R-I-S-M.
Water droplets in the atmosphere.
My class of the Parsha turned out to be a class in English. Very good.
Right.
So the light goes through the rain and that acts as a prism and that gives the color.
That's
It breaks down the sunlight
Right.
into the various colors.
Exactly. So that shows that the clouds are thinner now than then because the flood didn't just punish them, the flood purified them. It
You
elevated them.
get the same effect looking at a diamond when you see.
Yes.
If you look at a diamond, you see all the
Who
different
looked at
colors.
diamond?
Only if
Huh?
it's properly cut.
Oh yes, of course.
You know, I started a joke about a eulogy. I will tell you another joke about a eulogy I heard. That somebody says he wanted to, a very organized person, you hear, David, he wanted to get himself, he was a very organized person. So he wanted to make sure that everything is taken care of at his funeral. So he makes sure that he has a plat, and he makes sure that there is going to be a minyan. And now he's looking for somebody to carry a eulogy on him. So he says, he meets up with this guy that he was referred to. The guy says, I have 3 types of eulogies. One is $500, one is $200, one is $50. So he said, let me hear, what am I gaining for $500? What am I getting? So he tells them, for $500, I'm going to deliver such an emotional eulogy. I'm going to be crying, and the participants are going to be crying too. $500, too expensive. What am I getting for $200? Yes, for $200, you're getting also a nice delivery, but I don't think I can get the people crying for that price. I might shed a tear just for, too expensive for me. What am I getting for 50? For 50, I'm just saying the truth.
Good.
Right.
Get gesund. Yeah.
Okay, I hope you remember it for the next 50 years when you're going to invite me. Yeah? Very good. I'll see you guys. Sei gesund. Laila tov. I'm
Laila
looking for
tov.
bringing. I'm gonna.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Very good.
Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
A question.